Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're dissecting a fascinating economic paradox, one that's unfolding right now in Nepal. And, well, it really demands a closer look.
It certainly does.
Because on one hand, you have the broader national economy, which is struggling under some really severe pressure.
I mean, we're talking about a multi-year persistent liquidity crisis.
Exactly. Tight lending, you've got these government-imposed import restrictions, all designed to protect dwindling foreign exchange reserves.
And the result is this environment of, frankly, deep private sector caution. Capital deployment is just frozen.
Yet, and this is the paradox, against this backdrop of financial stress, there is this distinct and, I would say, formidable surge in hard currency investment.
And it's all targeting one specific niche.
Ultra-luxury hospitality. We're seeing sophisticated investors, both global and regional, channeling significant funds into five-star hotels, exclusive high-altitude lodges.
And they're not treating them as conventional tourism beds. The term you hear is financial fortresses.
That's it. So our mission today is to dissect why. Why is this calculated flight to safety happening? How do you engineer a luxury hotel to become the ultimate hedge against domestic instability?
Well, let's unpack it because the thesis holds up completely. It's a brilliant piece of financial strategy.
So it's not just a simple bet on tourism picking up?
No, not at all. It's not a speculation on a domestic boom because, I mean, that boom just isn't happening right now.
It's a hedge.
It's a proactive, very sophisticated hedge against the country's inherent fragility. These assets, they're deliberately engineered as dual-engine financial instruments.
Designed specifically to do what?
To shield hard cash. We're talking U.S. dollar-denominated funds from the volatility and the currency risk that just plagues the local market.
Yeah.
They are fundamentally defensive assets.
But with a pretty spectacular upside.
Oh, a spectacular offensive upside if tourism really does accelerate.
Okay, let's jump straight into that first engine then. Currency management. To really get the allure here, you have to understand the fundamental vulnerability of the Nepali rupee, the NPR.
You do. It all starts there.
Can you just walk us through the mechanics, the paydig, and why it creates this unique problem?
Absolutely. So the foundational issue is the mandatory fixed peg to the Indian rupee, the INR.
Right, at a rate of 1.6.
Exactly. 1 Indian rupee always equals 1.6 Nepali rupees. Now, this is intended to stabilize the massive economic flow with India.
Which makes sense on the surface.
It does, but the side effect is enormous. What it means is that Nepal has effectively surrendered control over its own monetary policy.
They've outsourced it to the Reserve Bank of India.
Pretty much. So whenever the INR weakens against the U.S. dollar, which it often does, the NPR gets dragged right down with it.
So Nepal is just importing currency volatility regardless of its own domestic situation.
Exactly. It's unavoidable.
So let's sharpen that contrast. How does this imported volatility crush, say, a local manufacturer versus how it actually protects a luxury hotel?
Okay, let's take a local firm, maybe making garments or packaged goods. Their revenue is all in NPR.
But their costs are not.
Not at all. Their operational costs, specialized threads, machinery parts, packaging, fuel, that's all priced in dollars or euros.
So when the NPR depreciates, let's say, by 5%.
Their cost of goods sold just jumped by 5%, instantly.
And here's the crucial part, right? They can't just pass that cost on to the local consumer.
They can't, because domestic consumption power is squeezed. It's inelastic. So they are locked in this vicious margin squeeze. They have to absorb all of that risk.
It sounds like a slow-motion disaster. Now, let's look at the flip side. A high-end property like a Chintamani or a new lodge up in the Annapurnas.
It operates in the mere opposite. They set their rack rate in a hard currency. Let's call it $600 a night for an international guest.
The payment comes in hard currency.
Correct, which they then exchange at whatever the prevailing rate is. So if the NPR to dollar rate moves from, say, 130 to 138 over a year,
that same $600 stay
instantly yields thousands more NPR in local revenue.
So the very economic force, the rupee depreciation that is crippling the manufacturer, becomes a source of automatic revenue inflation for the hotel.
That's it, exactly. The asset is engineered to be an active currency management tool.
And for the big Nepali business houses with these sprawling portfolios,
it becomes an essential internal hedge. Think about it. If you're exposed to rupee weakness in banking or construction, this is your anchor. The dollar cash flows from the hotel offset the losses elsewhere. It's a defensive masterpiece.
Okay, so the dollar revenue stream is powerful. That's engine one.
Yeah.
But you said this is a dual engine strategy,
Right. And the second engine is where the true mastery of this lies.
which is the synthesis of that foreign cash flow with what, the land itself?
The foundational security of rupee-denominated land appreciation. You're betting on currency weakness and domestic real estate strength at the same time.
To understand that, you really have to look at Nepal's capital markets, which are, well, undeveloped.
Profoundly undeveloped. I mean, ask yourself, where do people store value?
Not the stock market.
No, it's shallow, it's volatile, susceptible to manipulation, and there's a real lack of, say, long-term bonds that can reliably beat inflation.
So for the wealthy, for institutions, there's really only one trusted store of value.
Prime land. It's the multi-generational default. It's the primary hedge against inflation and currency depreciation. So capital just consistently flows into it.
So the combined value proposition, if I'm getting this right, is that an investor buys two appreciating assets, basically layered on top of each other.
That's it. You acquire the prime land, which appreciates steadily in MPR terms.
Yeah.
That's your bedrock.
And on top, you place a business that generates US dollars.
Right. So in periods of rupee stability, your tourism operation is driving profits.
And in periods of rupee weakness.
The currency hedge kicks in and just amplifies your returns in local currency, all while the land value underneath provides this absolute financial floor.
And if you contrast that with building, say, a factory.
A whole different story. With a factory, your cash is sunk into rapidly depreciating machinery. The land is probably less desirable, and the asset's value is tied almost entirely to its P&L statement.
Which we've already established is highly exposed to currency risk.
Exactly. A hotel, on the other hand, offers this diversified value. Even tourism hits a wall for a year or two.
A global crisis, geopolitical tensions.
The underlying value of that prime real estate in a key location remains an incredibly resilient anchor. It gives the investor holding power. They can ride out the cycle.
Okay, so we've got the currency hedge and the land vault. But the final element you mentioned, and you said this is arguably the most potent.
It is. It's the exploitation of artificial scarcity.
Government-enforced scarcity.
Precisely. This is about using regulation itself to build an economic moat that guarantees exclusivity.
So this is why these projects are in conservation areas, not just plopped down in Kathmandu.
This is the genius of it.
Yeah.
The government has maybe implicitly adopted a model like Bhutan's high-value, low-volume tourism strategy.
How does that work in practice?
Well, if you want to build a lodge near Sagarmatha National Park or in Upper Mustang, you face a regulatory labyrinth that is deliberately restrictive.
You're talking about environmental impact assessments, EIAs.
Rigorous EIAs that can take years, permissions from the Department of National Parks, and this is crucial consent from local community committees.
And these permits are not handed out freely.
They are finite. The framework creates what you could call scarcity by design.
So if an investor manages to navigate that process
and secures a license to be one of only, say, 3 lodges in a pristine valley, their competition is instantly eliminated by the state.
So you're buying into a near oligopoly. You dictate the pricing, not the market.
That is the ultimate outcome. It guarantees exclusivity, and with that comes exceptional pricing power. It lets you charge $500, $800, even $1,000 a night.
Because the demand far exceeds the available supply of rooms in that specific, highly sought-after location.
And the license itself, that piece of paper, becomes an intangible asset of immense and appreciating value.
So the real asset isn't just the building. It's the legally protected right to operate in a place of finite supply and, frankly, infinite global appeal.
The right is the moat, and the government is the gatekeeper.
Okay, we've laid out the mechanics. Let's look forward now at the strategic calculus for these investors. What are the 2 main paths this market could take?
Well, scenario 1 is basically the continuation of the current state. Macroeconomic fragility.
The base case, more or less.
The base case. A steady, managed depreciation of the rupee. Under that scenario, the flight to safety thesis only deepens. These assets become even more essential as wealth preservation tools.
What's the big risk there?
The risk is an uncontrolled devaluation, a crisis that spirals, forcing the government to impose capital controls. That would disrupt the flow of the very dollar earnings that make the asset so attractive.
And scenario 2?
Scenario 2 is significant economic stabilization, maybe driven by political stability, a boom in hydropower exports.
A stronger, more stable Nepali rupee.
Exactly. And that would actually blunt the currency hedge advantage. The outperformance of these hotels would diminish.
But the fundamentals would improve.
The fundamentals would soar. Stability would boost global demand for high-end tourism. So the investment play would shift from defense to offense, all about occupancy and operational excellence.
But regardless of which scenario plays out, we have to talk about the hard truth. The single greatest risk here is sovereign.
It is. The very regulatory moats that create this incredible value are controlled entirely by the state, by Singh Durbar.
The central government.
And that is the ultimate vulnerability. This value is artificial. It's created by legislation.
So a sudden policy change, a punitive tax on foreign currency earnings, a shift in land ownership laws.
Could evaporate this value overnight. The gatekeeper that created the scarcity has the absolute power to dismantle it unilaterally.
So investors aren't just buying financial risk, they're fundamentally buying political and regulatory risk.
They are. And navigating that transforms the investment from a passive allocation into an active, high-stakes political game.
What does that mean in practice? It has to be more than just lobbying.
Oh, absolutely. Success requires deep local engagement, joint ventures, visible community benefit investments, funding schools, health posts, and maintaining active political partnerships. You have to continuously manage your network to maintain the privilege that defines your moat.
To bring this all together for you, the listener, what we're seeing with Nepal's luxury hospitality sector is really a masterclass in risk-optimized asset allocation.
It is. The strategy succeeds because it turns the nation's core economic vulnerability, that rupee volatility, into a unique proprietary source of financial strength.
A fascinating dynamic. So let's end with this.
Oh.
A final thought for you to consider.
Given that the outsized value of these assets relies entirely on government-enforced scarcity in these fragile conservation areas, what level of return must an investor demand to justify taking on that constant, non-diversifiable threat of political instability?
A threat that could at any moment shut down the entire sector or just dismantle that regulatory moat.
Is it a 25% IRR, 30%? That political risk premium is the real price of entry.